There's an ongoing issue in society where men feel the need to join the army to prove their masculinity or prove their manhood. And there's many ways we can prove that, but we can prove it through a literary text, which is Othello, and a non-literary text, which is a a propaganda poster promoting men to join the United States Navy. Um, I will be analyzing Othello Act 1 Scene 3 from lines 130 to 172. It is where Othello, the main character, is giving his speech, his soliloquy um his to Desdemona's father and other people to prove that he used no witchcraft, because he was accused of using witchcraft to make Desdemona fall in love with him, and he was proving that he did nothing in particular but just tell her his stories from when he was in the war, in the army, and she's the one that just fell in love with him. And so at first he says, I ran it through even from my boyish days, meaning that even from his young days, he was able to get through all the tough times. And after all those tough times, like, it formed who he is, and it formed him into a really strong man. He says, rough quarries, rocks, and hills whose heads touch heaven. So that's basically imagery showing his bravery and how strong he was going through the quote-unquote rocks, meaning that really hard and dangerous times he had to go through. And he's also hyperbolic throughout, so he keeps up his reputation and still is able to persuade Desdemona to fall in love with him. He uses a metaphor as the hills were so high as if we reached the heaven, and he's basically just being very hyperbolic. He's exaggerating. She'd come again, and with a greedy ear devour my discourse. He gives off a very confident tone. He's very confident. He it shows that he like loves himself and he has no doubt in himself. So in this quote, he uses a metaphor. He compares, he says, devours my discourse. She comes with a greedy ear. So she's the one that comes and begs for, not begs, but sits and listens very clearly to his stories. And she just sits there and listens and listens and listens. And he doesn't even ask her to listen. She's the one volunteering to listen. Basically he just builds his ego off of her. It's kind of ironic that a wealthy white woman is in love with an ex-slave. He also said, I did consent and often did beguile her of her tears when I did speak of some distressful stroke that my youth suffered. So basically he's saying that whenever he would tell her stories about his youth, his tough youth, and his time during the army, she would cry for him, which is kind of ironic. Beguile means made her feel better about his past. So it's kind of ironic that she's the one crying when he's the one that actually suffered. He also says that heaven had made her such a man, she thanked me. Again, we see how confident he is in himself. He loves himself. He's saying that heaven brought Othello to her. He was custom made for her, and she should be very thankful. He also says, she loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I loved her that she did pity them. This is the only witchcraft I used. So basically he's saying that she felt bad and she loved him and he loved her out of pity. Basically saying, I love her because she loves me. She feeds his ego a lot because she's the one that's so invested in listening to his stories. Um, and also, this moment kind of foreshadows all the downfalls, and it's ironic that he didn't use any witchcraft, he just used his good storytelling powers.
In this video, I'll be talking about a poster that was created in the 1970s during the war to recruit Americans to join the Navy War. This poster has a few phrases that are very important and that I will elaborate on later on. So, the first phrase that is positioned on the top right says G, 2 exclamation marks, I wish I were a man. G and a man are underlined, which means that they're probably going to have a deeper meaning that I will get into it later. And then under it says, I'll join the Navy. After, it says, be a man and do it. And under that, United States Navy recruiting station. On the left, we also have a beautiful picture of a lady called Chandra Christie. This lady wanted to join the Navy in California, but sadly wasn't able to as she was a lady. Chandra Christie, I Wish I Were a Man poster is a great example of an artist's well-known strategy of illustration. The aim of this poster is to show an attractive woman to draw the attention of the young heterosexual man to join the military. This particular Christie girl, as they were commonly known, provocatively combines masculinity and femininity features to flirtatious compels men to enlist the Navy. Giving her state, gee, I wish I were a man, the poster not only suggests to join the military, it's also an opportunity for a man to become more sexually attractive to the woman of the opposite sex. But that decision not to enlist a masculinity. The poster questions the manhood of male viewers who have not enlisted by showing a petite woman should gladly join the Navy if permitted. The strategy that the author used when writing the poster and underlining and adding exclamation mark was to give it that bold meaning and that meaning of importance. The tone was very serious, tensed, and really focused on man's and masculinity through the text. This text was almost threatening to the guys that did not want to go to war and could have embarrassed them in a sense because maybe they're weaker, maybe they don't want to get hurt, they wouldn't be considered as men at that time. So in conclusion, we can say that this text is very sexist towards man, and that the expectations of men at that period of time was very high, and they had to be bold, they had to be strong, and the tones also are very threatening. So like explanation marks, the underlining, make it obvious and clear that men should be big, strong, and should protect ladies. And I find it very unfair, and that could even cause trauma to some boys because at such a young age they have to fight for their sexuality, their name, and their label.
As we can see, Shakespeare, the author of Othello, and Howard Chandler, the artist of Gee, I Wish I Was a Man, both want to show us that going to war is a sign of masculinity and strength, and that participating in war to protect and serve our country is what makes us a man. Each artist explained this fact to us in a different way. Howard Chandler shows us how lucky men are for being of that gender by showing us, on the other hand, that women wish they were able to participate in a war, but because of their gender, they are unable to. Men have the gift to serve in a war, and they should use that gift, as it will grant them respect from others, and they will come back as heroes to their country. On the other hand, Shakespeare presents it through a character's point of view, a character that has been in a war and is telling the tale behind it. Shakespeare uses imagery to show Othello's bravery and strength while passing through the rocks, a dangerous place. He also uses hyperboles and metaphors to build up confidence and ego, and to show that Desdemona is the one that fell in love with Othello because of his bravery and his dangerous stories from the time of war. In the end, through different methods, both artists want to address the issue of war. They both show how men are manipulated into going to the war, being promised that if they survive, their lives will be dramatically better when they come back, as it shows them becoming brave and respected. But even when in reality, most people end up dying, and even if they survive, they come back home with heavy trauma and unable to continue life as a normal person. War is not a test of strength. It is a destructive event that kills and destroys millions of people's lives.